Hello and welcome to Science Fun with Miss Mary. Today we're talking about penguins and we're going to do a little experiment to see how they stay dry. If you picked up a kit from the library, inside it you will find a printout of a penguin, 3 crayons, white, black, and orange, and a little spray bottle, and inside that spray bottle you will see little bits of blue. They kind of look like little bits of blue chalk, but it's food coloring, and so that way when we add water in there, it's going to make our water blue. So be careful and make sure to leave that in there because that's important for later. If you weren't able to pick up a kit from the library, if you have these things at home, you can do it along with us. If you did pick up a kit from the library, these are 2 things you'll still need from home: a pair of scissors, and you'll have to fill a little bit of water up on your little spray bottle. So the first thing you're going to want to start with is finding your penguin coloring sheet and those 3 crayons. We are going to color in everything of the penguin. I'm going to not cut it out until I'm done coloring, and that way I don't have to worry about keeping inside the lines. But the reason you have a white crayon, and there's so much white on the penguin, is we're going to want to make sure that crayon gets everywhere. And it's hard to see it because it's white, but I even colored over the black lines of what's printed out, and I colored everything twice to make sure I didn't miss anything. So let's get started with that. The first color I'm going to do is the orange one because it won't take too long. So I grab my orange. I'm even going to color around those black outlines that make the little beak. And as you can see, I'm checking to make sure no white of the paper is showing. And we're filling it all in. I'm also going to fill in his little feet. And again, we're going to cut this out, so I don't have to be too careful. I'm just going to color it all the way outside the edges. And if you want to color any other colors and you have crayons at home, you're welcome to do that. The only thing is you have to make sure you're using crayons. You don't want to use markers or colored pencils or anything like that because it's not going to be the same experiment. And see how I'm going over it twice? I don't want to see any white of the paper showing through. And I want to make sure I'm going over all those black lines. That way the crayon has gone over all the paper. Alright, next I'm going to do black. And again, I'm going over those black lines. Not worrying too much about the edges because we're going to cut those off. Then I'm going to go kind of a little bit faster, but I'm going to make sure I go over it a second time, get all those white spots. Alright, let's shake that hand out. And if you need to take a little break and come back, that's okay. Alright, so we got our orange, we got our black, and now we still have to fill in the white. A quick thing, and it's probably going to happen to me too, is if there's any little shavings of a color, when we color over it with the white, it's gonna smear with some of those and mix a little bit, so you might see some gray or you might see some orange. That's okay if that happens. The one thing you could do, see all the little bits and pieces, you can kind of dust it off a little bit, get some of those off of there if you're worried about it. But again, if it happens, it's not a big deal. I'm just kind of letting the wind take it. Alright, then I'm going to start with my white. So white, is hard because we can't see it too much on the white paper. But you can kind of see, because as you're doing it, you'll notice there's a little bit of a shine to it, and that will help you know where you've been before. And especially if you go over it twice, hopefully you get it in one of those times. You don't have to go over a part that already has crayon on it, so I don't have to go over the black. But this eye hasn't had any crayons on it, so I'm just going to go over the whole, oh, my crayon broke, that's okay. The whole eye with white, because again, we're trying to cover all the paper that we can with the crayon. Once you feel like everything is covered and you kind of tilt it a little bit in the light, you can see that shine. Make sure it's gotten everywhere. I can kind of dust that off a little bit. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut out my cute little penguin. Alright, once he's cut out, you're going to find that little spray bottle. You could take the cap off. But remember, there's a little bit of blue shavings. It looks like little chalk in there. That's just food coloring. It's a food coloring tablet. So when you put a little bit of water in there, it's going to make it blue. So at this time, you could pop off the top. And if you need some adult help, you can do that. And then find a little bit of water. You don't want to turn on the sink all the way and then put this under, because then you're going to lose all the blue little bits. You're going to want it to drip, drip, drip into there. And then you're going to close it, and you're going to shake it up, and you're going to let the water change color. Once the water's changed color, you'll see it's going to be a nice blue. And then we have everything we need ready to go for our experiment. All right, before we get too far into our experiment, remember today we are learning about how do penguins stay dry. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about penguins first. I am a penguin. I live in the Antarctic, where it's very cold. I am a bird, but I do not fly. Instead, I swim in the ocean to find my food. Penguins use their flippers like wings to help them move under the water. Long, sharp claws help the penguin to grip the ice and snow. The penguin's ears are underneath its orange and yellow fur. All together now, when they are on land, these emperor penguins live together in a big group called a colony. And see these baby ones? And then there's the adult. While we're working on our experiment too, do you see how different the feathers look on the babies as they do on the adult penguin? How do you think the different feathers help the babies, and how the feathers that the adults have help the adults? All right, for this next part, you're going to take your penguin, and I want you to feel how our paper feels now that the crayon is on there. What texture do you feel? Then you're going to take your bottle, pop that top, and you're going to give it a couple little sprays on the belly and anywhere that you put the crayon. And what is that water doing? Is it soaking up into the paper? What's that water doing? It's kind of beating up, right? And it's staying on the surface. So what does that tell us about what we did to this paper? And a little bit about penguins' feathers. What do you think? And if it's ever raining outside, is there something you wear to make sure the water does this to you? Let's talk a little bit about the baby and the adult. Feather care. The chick's downy feathers are soft and warm, but they are not waterproof. Mom helps keep them clean and fluffy. And here's a little baby penguin at 2 days old. So is there a word in there that makes sense for what we're talking about? waterproof, right? So these baby penguins have a lot of really warm downy to keep them warm, but they are not waterproof, so they can't go in the water yet. And do you see the adult feathers? How do you think they're different? My adult feathers grow in. After 5 months, I'm starting to grow my adult waterproof feathers. This means I'll be able to swim and find my own food. This penguin is as big as his father, but he can't feed himself yet. Do you see the difference in the feathers? So he can't go in the water yet because he's not waterproof yet. And once they're old enough, my first swim. Now that I have my waterproof feathers, I am ready to start swimming and hunting for my own fish dinner. Penguins use their flippers to help them move underwater. These penguins are waiting in line to dive into the ice-cold water. As we did our experiment, we could see how the water repels off our penguins. And then we talked a little bit more about penguins and how when they're little, they have downy feathers, which are soft and warm. And then they get their adult feathers, which are waterproof. The adult feathers have wax on them. The wax helps repel the water and keep the penguins warm and dry. And that's similar to how we used our crayons, which have a waxy texture on the paper, and that made our penguin waterproof. So there's wax on the penguin's adult feathers, and that's what repels the water and keeps the penguin warm and dry. Today we learned a lot about penguins and how penguins stay dry. Thank you so much for joining Science Fun with Miss Mary. See you next time. Bye.